What is going on, guys? Today we will be going over my most overrated player on every team. This will be a two-part series. I'll go over overrated this video, and another video I'll make here shortly will be the underrated players on every team. Either way, before we get into this video, I'd like to say, help me get to 1,000 subs. We are, clearing 600. That's great. That's awesome. We were at 500 not even that long ago. But 1,000 subs, I will do another jersey giveaway. That's another big margin for me to hit there. Help me pay my bills. Let's go. Either way, let's get right into this video. Alright guys, so we will be easily using a tier list to track our progress on this tier list. I mean, basically just going to make sure I know what I'm doing, what teams I've talked about, what teams I haven't. Either way, we're going to go through the divisions in order, starting with the AFC East. The Bills are going to be our first one, and I think it is Gabe Davis. The Bills have a huge issue right now with just offensive production, and there's a very false narrative that they have this superly talented offense. They don't. They have Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. That's about all the talent they have. Gabe Davis runs a go route and runs a drag route really well. Other than that, he's not that good. Next is going to be the Miami Dolphins, and this is a shocker here for a lot of you probably. It's going to be Tua Tagovailoa. Tua is a very solid quarterback. He's just not an amazing quarterback. And he's statistically better than this, better than that. He's schemed into it. There's a lot of things that he's just enabled to do because that's the offense he's in. And that's great. He does it well. That's awesome. He's a limited quarterback. His arm's a noodle. He is the only two receivers in the NFL who are quick enough to turn around and catch an underthrown ball. He's got a very good thing going for him, and that's great for him, but talking about him like he's an MVP is just insane. It's absolutely crazy. The New England Patriots are next, and it's hard to say there's anybody overrated because nothing is rated about this team. They're all terrible. I'm going to go with Juju simply because he's been extremely unproductive. I hate to say it. I love Juju as a player. Good receiver. He's just been extremely unproductive. I believe he has like 170 yards, or at least he did prior to this week, of offense. So that's just, that's pretty good, right? Yeah. The Jets. This one is also a shocker. This is more of a this season based answer for this team because I had a struggle trying to find an overrated player on this team. It's Quinnen Williams this year. He just hasn't really done a whole lot after last year being an all-pro and being so great. Just kind of been statistically unproductive. So can't give him a whole lot of credit this season, though he is still probably a pretty good player. Let's be real. Moving on. The Ravens are going to be next in the AFC North is where we're going. And I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson. The average depth of target is extremely limited, and that makes it easy for him to complete passes because the guys he's throwing to are very short, close to him, within range. He's not a good passer outside the numbers, and this is overrated. Overrated does not mean bad. Let me make that abundantly clear. You can be overrated and a very good player. You could be overrated and one of the best players. It's just, Lamar, he's not playing like an MVP right now. Everything's schemed up for him. Just not what you'd expect from supposed to be a high-flying offense is what we were told was going to happen this year as the Ravens improved their roster and, all that total. Let me move that up a little bit. Next, after Baltimore, we go to Cincy, and that's going to be Orlando Brown. As a tackle, he came over with this supposedly high price tag, was supposed to be a big impact player from Kansas City, and he's just not been that good. It's just, great. Sure. It's been whatever. He was that way in Kansas City, though. He just got hyped for whatever reason. He's not that good of a tackle. He's okay at best. Cleveland is going to be Myles Garrett. Though he's been very good this year, he has a very high missed tackle percentage. And one thing I will say is Myles Garrett's been one of the most overhyped players for years. Granted, he is a top 3 defensive player in the league. But you can still be overhyped because, for example, Colin Cowherd had this show segment one day where he had listed guaranteed Hall of Famers, debatable Hall of Famers, and so on. Myles Garrett was the only guaranteed Hall of Famer. Myles Garrett hasn't done a single thing. He's never led the league in sacks, tackles for loss, anything over guys like TJ Watt, Aaron Donald. Never had anything better than them, ever. He's never won an award. He's never done anything. What makes this guy a Hall of Famer other than some comparable stats to really good players? And, he's super athletic. That's the only thing people care about, I guess, anymore, is athleticism, because that's what they give him. Then, moving on to the Steelers. we're going to go with Jaylen Warren. While he has been very good for the Steelers and Najee Harris has not looked great, what a lot of people don't realize is it's a lot of the scheme and how things are different when between him and Najee Harris. Jaylen Warren gets a lot of outside zone runs, doesn't go up the middle too much. They also give him a lot of pass receptions, and that's just a big differentiator between him and Najee. Najee's a good player. He just doesn't have the people say, oh, Najee doesn't have the vision and doesn't have the burst. How do you have the vision when there's no hole that your offensive line is making for you to see, to visualize, and how do you have burst when there's nothing, no hole, no escape route for you to burst through? It's just, they're different runners. Jaylen Warren, good player, just not been as good as people are saying. Next division, the AFC South. Houston. I'm saying this one, and listen to me here. It's C.J. Stroud. While he's been amazing, absolutely wonderful, he is still a rookie. Yes, what he's been better than any rookie's ever been. Absolutely right. Here's the thing. It's just like Kenny Pickett last season, when after the bye, Steelers fans got all up in arms about how Kenny Pickett was so great, led him to 7-2 record after the bye. You got to stop. If you put these top tier comparisons on these quarterbacks at a young age, they're going to flame out. You're going to be disappointed. They'll never be able to live up to the expectation. This is another team that I really couldn't find anybody super overrated, and so I had to go with C.J. Stroud. But if we keep giving him these greatest of all time comparisons, he's gonna never hit those comparisons or whatever, and you'll be always disappointed. So you've got to tamper it down. It's more about just limiting the hypedness here. After Houston, we're gonna go to Indianapolis, and this is easily Zach Moss. I mean, you just can't expect him to continue, and if you do, you just got to think of it differently, because Jonathan Taylor is a better player. Jonathan Taylor is going to take his snaps, and it's just going to happen. He's just not that great of a player. He was good in a stopgap period, and that's what it is. After that, Jacksonville. It's going to be Trevor Lawrence for them, and I hate saying that because, I love Trevor Lawrence, and I think he's going to be one of the better quarterbacks in the league for the whole time he's in the NFL. But he's just not really been that good this year, and the Jaguars have found ways to win, which is great, but I'd be looking for a lot more from Trevor Lawrence, he's one of the best prospects ever. So, yeah, let's see a little more from him. Tennessee Titans, another team that was really hard to find an overhyped player because not really been that great of a team this year. But I'm going to go with Chig Okonkwo, an okay tight end, but he's just not that good. And a lot of people, for some reason, think he's, really good. I've seen a lot of hype for him. He's okay. He's mostly unproductive this year. He's just an average player. He just is. After that, after Tennessee, we're going to Denver in the AFC West. Denver, Justin Simmons, he's kind of had a fall off. He's been quite unproductive this year. Just not been the best look for him in general across the board in Denver. The Denver defense has been really bad, so maybe there's other things to it. But yeah, he's at this point going to be that player. After Denver, we go to Kansas City. Kansas City is going to be both of the tackles, Donovan Smith and Jawan Taylor, unproductive, have made a lot of mistakes. And they're winning despite them. They've definitely fixed it up lately, but I don't know. It's just when they got brought in this offseason, everybody talked about them like they were just massive upgrades over Orlando Brown and Andrew Wiley or whatever his name was. They're really not. They're honestly steps down. It's just whatever. After Kansas City, we go to Vegas. Another team, not the easiest to be able to find, an overrated player. I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs, though. He's been mostly unproductive this year up until recently, and I think Antonio Pierce has helped him just scheme-wise. Antonio Pierce, the new head coach, has really helped a lot there. But, everybody thought he was a top 3 running back starting this year. But why? He had one good year in his career. Every other year, he's been just above average. He's been a good player, but not a great one. Last year, he leads the league in rushing one time, and everybody thinks he's the best running back in the league for some reason, when it's just not sustainable. It isn't. It's just not going to be. The Chargers, they're also going to get their running back on this list. Austin Eckler, limited production, but he's been unproductive when he has. Not had the same burst, it doesn't look like. And, kind of ironic that he riled up that whole running back fiasco in the offseason just for, this to be what he's showing himself as right now. That is all the AFC. We're going to jump to the NFC now, starting with the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC East. And that's going to be Tony Pollard at the moment. He's just Everybody thought he was going to be a bell cow running back because Zeke left, and he's just not that kind of player. He's a dynamic number 2 running back in a really good offense. And, like, if he was with anybody else that could, take some of the heavy reps for him, he'd be great. But just he's not that great. He just isn't. After them, going to the New York Giants, Daniel Jones, because he stinks. And a lot of people in the offseason, when I made a video, said that I was dogging too hard on him. Well, look at him now. I mean, he threw 15 touchdowns last year. Why did anyone think he was going to be capable of pretty much anything? I mean, he's just not. He just isn't. Philly, I'm going to give this one to DeAndre Swift. It's been a lot of fantasy hype for him. And fumbles have been a little bit of an issue, which have always been a kind of thing with him. But the fantasy hype has taken him a long way. It's kind of like Justin Fields. The hype with Justin Fields gets him a long way. Yeah, he's still a good player. So, like I said, some of these players are still good. They're just not quite as good as we realize because of some things that might blind you a little bit. In Washington, I'm going to say the defensive tackles, both Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen, they are supposed to be 2 of the best tackles in the league, and they play on the same team, clogging up the same, line, but the run game has just gone all over them this year. They have been incredibly bad. I don't know if it's them, if it's the linebackers behind them not helping out the right way, if it's the edge rushers not getting their job done prior to it being Montez Sweat and Chase Young traded. I don't know what it is exactly, but they just have not been a good run defense, and I believe it's going to start with your 2 best players who should be defending the run every single play. After Washington, we go to the NFC North, and that's going to be Chicago Bears. And I'm going to start with Darnell Wright. He's just not been a good draft pick to this point. Penalties like crazy. And I told y'all that was a stupid pick. That was one. I'm going to claim that one. Terrible pick. Wasn't even the 3rd best tackle on the board. That's a little bit sarcastic. I don't even know right now. But, yeah, he's not very good. They missed their shot on Broderick Jones. They missed their shot on Peter Skoronski. Honestly, I had Anton Harrison over him, and I'd take him at this point right now. So, yeah, not a good pick and just bad overall. I don't have to talk about Justin Fields here because you already know how I feel about him. Detroit, interesting team here. I'm going with Sam Laporta. Fantasy hype once again for this guy. He's been really solid, and, that's great. But he also has an 8.5 drop percentage, almost 9% drop percentage. That's not good. That's a really bad drop percentage. He's a good player. He's not a great player. Let's stop acting like it. And Green Bay Packers are next. Jair Alexander. He has just been getting the tar beat out of him. 138.5 passer rating against is atrocious. I don't know if he's been unhealthy all year. Packers fans, let me know why he's been so bad, but he's just not been good. And it's just, yeah, it's been very, very, very bad. Why was he so good last year and so bad this year? I don't know. I haven't really watched a ton of Packers games, but he's not been good, so he easily makes this list. After them, Minnesota, wherever they are, right there in front of me, it's going to be TJ Hawkinson. He's kind of had a lack of production, and I feel like that's partially the fault of Jordan Addison. Last year, he was very good because he was the number 2 target, but this year, he's really become the number 3 behind Addison, which is a good problem to have in all honesty, but he's just not been the same top tier that he once was just a year ago. He's still a very good player. I think he's done a lot of good things this year. He just isn't the same as he was. So I've got to put him on this list somewhere. ATL, it's going to be Bijan, and that's just simply because of the lack of production usage. Is he even overhyped? Probably not. Overrated? I don't even know if he's hardly rated at this point, and it's not even his fault. It's just because they're not using him right. But I had to pick somebody, and some of these teams, it's just hard to find an overrated player. After Atlanta, Carolina. Big signing in the offseason, big bust in the regular season. So, he's been a terrible signing. He really was shown that the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line can carry a running back to massive success. Chuba Hubbard has been playing over him the last few weeks. So, if that doesn't tell you something, yeah, he's been pretty rough. New Orleans. I'm going to have to go with Tyrann Mathieu. Passer rating allowed is over 111%, on that rating. And also, what is this? His yards per reception are 15. I've got some stats listed, but they're too small for me to read. Yards per reception is over 15 yards per that. And average depth of targets, 7 yards, basically. He's just not had a good year. And stay tuned, though, for the underrated player on the Saints, because I've got a lot of love for that guy on the next video. Tampa Bay. Rashad White. He's just not that great of a running back. And, like, I don't know why people think he is any kind of that good, because he's just not. A lot of PPR fantasy hype for that, and it just, he's just not that great of a player. He's a mediocre running back, probably one of the worst in the league as a starting running back. After them, Arizona. I'm going to go with Paris Johnson / Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz has an atrocious drop percentage at 13%. Paris Johnson's also not been very good. I really couldn't pick between these two because Paris Johnson was drafted so high they traded up for him, and he's not been very good. Granted, could that just be the fact that the Cardinals are just awful as a whole? Absolutely, it might be. That's why I kind of included Ertz here too, because he's just been bad in general. After Arizona, we go to the Los Angeles Rams, and this is going to be Puka Nacua. He's a lot of fantasy hype. While Cooper Kupp was out, he got a lot of targets, and they're just going to go away. Yeah, he's a fine player. He's a diamond in the rough. He's a good steal of the draft. He's just not an amazing elite receiver, though, like some people act like he is for some reason. The 49ers, it's going to be Nick Bosa this year. He is just a bad missed tackle percentage. He doesn't really get a whole lot of sacks right now. Purdy is also could be an honorable mention here because Purdy really just isn't that great of a player, and people think he's the top 5 quarterback, but he's just not. He's an average player in a really good system. But either way, back to Bosa. He just, after a Defensive Player of the Year campaign, it's just not been very pretty for him. He's still a good player, but, I mean, it's just not looked good as it is this year. The Seattle Seahawks are going to go to Kenneth Walker. He's a very boom or bust player. He might do a lot of things good for you, or he might just do a whole lot of nothing. And his decision making is very, very poor. Does a whole lot of things that just don't really help out his team. And just he'll see a hole and go the other way. I don't understand what he does sometimes, but when he's on, he does amazing things. He's super great. So either way, this is our overrated list. Let me know what you guys think about each team's overrated player. Does your team have the best overrated player, worst overrated player? Is there a player who I should have said for your team that I didn't say? Either way, thank you guys for watching. Please stay tuned for the next video where I go over the most underrated player on each team. Thanks for watching. Peace.